name is Chris, and I'm honored to be with you tonight. We're going to be talking about shame. And already, some of you are like, I'm out. I don't want to do this. One of the core responses to shame is actually to disengage, or to disconnect. And so I'm just aware, and we were even praying that tonight as you would hear what I'm about to share with you, that you would be able to stay present. And so just kind of care for yourself and pay attention to what it is that you're feeling. If you begin like you're starting to disconnect a little bit, what I'm saying is making you feel a little bit uncomfortable, just pay attention to that, and let's stay together. We already did that. So a little bit about me, for those of you that don't know me. I am married to an incredible woman named Angela, and if you're a transfer student, she's probably the person that was responsible for admitting you. She's the Associate Director of Transfer Admissions. We have two kids, Ava, who is 3 years old, and Daniel, who is almost 3 months old. That was adorable. This was Easter, as you can see, and this picture feels particularly important because of the banner, and we'll get to it in a little bit, but it says all things new. And to be honest, when we took the picture, it was just going to be like the Easter picture. Like, we needed a picture of all of us. We were dressed and clothed, and dressed and clothed are the same thing, but we were clean and we were smiling, and like everyone's hair was brushed, and so we're like, we are going to take a picture. But as we'll find out in a little bit, that banner, all things new, actually is a little bit more important than I really anticipated when we took the picture. So as I mentioned, we're going to talk about shame, and we're going to answer 3 things. Why do we need to belong? What prevents us from belonging? And how can we belong? And shame is going to be woven into all of this because shame is one of the things that can prevent us from belonging. And so that's what we're going to answer. So let's jump in. As I mentioned, I have 2 amazing kids, and I've watched both of them take their first breaths. I've watched them grow, change, develop, and become new people, sometimes overnight. I watched my daughter Ava learn to love the teacups at Disneyland. The first couple times, she was not a fan. She was like, I do not like this, stop spinning this. She was really unsure. She had a season of protest against riding them, but now she can't get enough. It's one of her favorite rides, and she's often screaming, faster, Daddy, faster. And I'm like, it literally doesn't spin faster. I've watched her grow from a baby who survived off of her mother's milk to a bold lover of sashimi, broccoli, tofu, and carrots, and chocolate. But she's basically an almost vegetarian, and it's really funny because her parents are not. More recently, my son Daniel was born. He'll be 3 months on Sunday, and as I was preparing for our time, I just kept thinking about him. And so I know that I've talked about my kids twice already, but I just need you to stay with me in that. Because I was thinking about how dependent he is on Angela. He is strictly breastfed, and so if Angela suddenly decided that she just didn't feel like feeding him, he would starve because he refuses formula. And so he is dependent upon one person to provide everything for him. At 3 months old, he can feel her in the room, and he knows her. He's absolutely aware that she is his primary source of not only comfort, but life. Angela's a warrior. I have watched her body grow these 2 humans, birth them, and sustain their life. To be honest, for a long time, I felt a little useless. I thought that all I was good for was changing diapers, giving baths, and super brief cuddles because they wanted their mom. Almost exclusively, it was like, no, I love her, not you. And you're like, wait, what the heck? You're my kid too. But it's amazing that they knew that is my person. I need her. Fast forward, Ava now almost 3, I have become one of her people. I'm her dad. Oh man. I'm a source of stability, nurture, and love. And there are times when she wants me and she only wants me. And it's usually to help her with something, but she wants me. And it's like no one else will fit the task other than Dad. That's a pretty big difference from when she was an infant. And in the middle of the night, she'll wake up because she's thirsty, needs to use the restroom, or has a bad dream. She calls out from her bed, "Daddy!" And we have wooden floors, and so it like echoes. And granted, she could get out of bed herself for what she needs for the most part, but she just chooses to yell out because she knows I will come. Upon hearing her cry, I could be in the deepest sleep, and I'm a deep, deep sleeper. But with ninja-like reflexes, I am up, my heart is racing, my feet are moving quickly, and I calmly ask her, "What do you need, baby?" And sometimes she just wants me to sing "Bless the Lord" for the 100 billionth time. But she needs me. She needs our family. You see, human beings were made to connect with other humans. It's essential not only to our thriving, but our very surviving. Human infants are born the most vulnerable mammals on the planet. Other mammals are born and they can crawl to their food source. They can crawl on their mom's back. They can go for a swing in the jungle. But not our babies. Our babies are born and they just lay there and cry. But they lay there and cry until another human being comes to connect with them. If another human being does not come, they die. And they know that from the second they're born. Our babies need protectors in order to thrive and survive. And even when the same person doesn't come to our children in a reliable, nurturing way, they can fail to thrive and fail to grow. Our babies come ready to connect from the second they're born. They have skin so soft that you just kind of want to hold them and cuddle them forever. Their big eyes look up at you, they learn to smile, and they have these little cooing noises that make you fall in love. Because when we are in love, we will do the incredibly challenging work of raising a child. We will get up for the millionth time in the middle of the night to feed the baby, sacrificing our own survival needs for sleep and rest in order to ensure their survival. And this is why it's not enough for children to feel only physically safe, but they must also feel psychologically safe. And the way our babies feel psychologically safe is to be claimed, to belong, to have a secure protector to whom they are connected, because they know when they have this, when we are in love, we will ensure their survival. We come into the world literally tethered to another human being, and that need for claiming human belonging never really goes away our whole life long. I'm sure if you were honest, even now, you would probably feel some of that. But it's especially pronounced in children, which is why this example is particularly helpful. We must belong in order to thrive and survive. We must be part of a human family, part of a community in order to feel safe and protected. And when these early messages are not present, when children don't feel claimed, when they don't know for sure they are protected, they are left with trauma and stress that literally affects their ability to live as they face threats on their own. This is the first moment that I met Daniel, and it was the first time that he was also separated from his mom. He was not happy. And while the moment was huge and love was everywhere, he was looking for the person that he had been attached to for 9 months. So you might be sitting here thinking that you are above the need to belong. Maybe you would consider yourself someone that's pretty self-sufficient, not particularly needy. Maybe you would use the term independent to describe yourself, and you're already checking out a little bit because what I'm saying is maybe too feely or it's a little bit uncomfortable. But I want to push here a little bit and ask you to stay, because my sense is this: even the most independent and self-sufficient people need people. Nobody is exempt from feeling shame, loneliness, isolation, abandonment, or vulnerable. Feeling vulnerable, imperfect, and afraid is quite literally human. It's when we lose our capacity to hold space for these struggles, for these feelings, that we become dangerous. Dangerous to ourselves and dangerous to others. So, what prevents us from belonging? Brene Brown says, one of the deepest paradoxes about vulnerability is that when I meet you, vulnerability is the very first thing I try to find in you. And it's the very last thing I want to show you in me because it's the glue that holds connection together. It's all about our common humanity. And when we own our stories and we share our stories with one another, and we see ourselves reflected back in the stories of people in our lives, we know we're not alone. And to me, that's the heart of wholeheartedness. It's the center of spirituality. To me, that's the nature of connection, to be able to see myself and hear myself and learn more about myself and the stories you tell about your experiences. I think if we're all a little honest, we would say that we don't want to spend our days living disconnected from people. To live in a way where we're spending every ounce of energy ducking and weaving to avoid shame and indirectly avoiding human connection. But before we get any further, let's jump back to the passage of scripture that we read together earlier. This is Rembrandt's painting titled The Prodigal Son. It's one of my favorite pieces of art. It's probably fair to say that most of us are somewhat familiar with the parable of the lost son. For most of my life, I referred to this story as the parable of the prodigal son. However, more recently, I've chosen to call it the story of the lost son. If you have an NIV Bible, you will see that the title in your translation says that of the lost son. The reason I'm making note of this slight change in wording is because I think it's actually the most beautiful part of this story. In particular, it is missed when we focus on the prodigal theme. If we move too quickly past or even ignore completely the fact that the prodigal son was actually a lost son, we totally miss something. While he certainly did live up to the meaning of the word prodigal, which describes someone that spends money or resources freely and recklessly, someone that is wastefully extravagant, which he was, we miss the deeper part of the story in which I believe Jesus is asking us to see. I imagine that Jesus is inviting us to see a son that squandered all that he was graciously given, but to also see a son that was lost, disconnected, without a place of belonging. Granted, it was his own doing, right? It was his own choices, but he was still alone, isolated, afraid, vulnerable. I wonder if somewhere in the story of the lost son you might identify as a lost son or daughter. Maybe you don't identify with the lost son, maybe you're more like the older brother. Maybe you've done everything right and stand in silent rage and anger that your brother, someone deserving of much less than you, has not paid their dues. Justice hangs in the balance. The older son usually gets little attention in the discussions of the Bible story. Yet Henry Nouwen explains how both Rembrandt and Henry himself had part of the dark, resentful side of the elder son in each of them. Henry admits he understands the envy that the elder son feels towards the younger brother. The elder son lived in an obedient and dutiful life, yet when his brother came home, the elder son felt resentful, unkind, selfish, and without joy. Neither the parable nor the Rembrandt story indicates whether the elder son finally reconciled himself to what was happening. Nouwen asks, can the elder son in me come home? How can I return when I am lost in resentment, when I am caught in jealousy, when I am imprisoned in obedience and duty that is lived out as slavery? The answer, Henry says, can be found in living with gratitude as a discipline. Nouwen says that the painting just as easily could have been called The Welcome by the Compassionate Father, because in the painting, the father's hands are the true central point. So if you're looking at it, the part that you're supposed to focus on most are his hands. The light in the eyes of others focus on these hands. The left hand is masculine while the right hand is more feminine. So the character is mother as well as father, welcoming, holding, and caressing the son. The painting is about the father's love for both of his sons. Many people live with secret feelings that they are not worthy of love, or they wonder whether others truly love them. Nouwen felt that way. He rarely felt or experienced the intimacy that he wrote about so often. He suffered from loneliness. The father of the prodigal son invites The father of the prodigal son, though, invites us to experience joy, which can be more difficult than experiencing sadness. Joy, like gratitude, is a choice. It requires choosing for the light even when there is much darkness to frighten, choosing for life even when the forces of death are so visible, and choosing for the truth even when you're surrounded by lies. So, what prevents us from belonging? Quite simply, shame. Brene Brown says this about shame. She's a shame expert, so we've referred to her a couple times. I believe that there is a profound difference between shame and guilt. I believe that guilt is adaptive and helpful. It's holding something we've done or failed to do up against our values and feeling psychological discomfort. I define shame as the intensely painful feeling or experience of believing that we are flawed and therefore unworthy of love and belonging. Something we've experienced, done, or failed to make us unworthy of connection. I don't believe shame is helpful or productive. In fact, I think shame is much more likely to be the source of destructive, hurtful behavior than the solution or cure. So, how do we combat it? How do we belong? Well, we'll look at two things. We'll look at belonging versus fitting in and transparency versus vulnerability. The opposite of belonging is actually fitting in. And I think so often we interpret fitting in as belonging. You're at a stage in life where that's what most of you are trying to do. You're just trying to fit in. But it's often confused as, I really belong here. Fitting in is assessing and acclimating. Here's what I should say. This is what I shouldn't say. I should avoid talking about, looking like, etc. But don't confuse the two, because they're very different. Transparency versus vulnerability. I think we as a culture, as Christian culture, we have perfected transparency because we maybe have an accountability partner or a friend that we're close with, and we feel like, well, we tell them a lot of things, so we're vulnerable. But vulnerability is not actually transparency. Because there might be that 10% that you reserve to not actually share. And you share 90%, so yeah, you're transparent, but what's that 10%? What's that thing that you're saying, well, I just can't tell them this much? That's kind of like going a little bit deeper, and that's where you find vulnerability. Whoops, I turned too soon. It's not simply enough to see shame as a bad thing that needs to be eradicated. Rather, with its healing comes freedom. So much of our attachment patterns are formed in the context of family, where we have our first experiences of joy and shame. Kurt Thompson in The Soul of Shame says that one of the most helpful tools we have for forming secure attachments in our children is making sense of our own stories, bringing out of hiding our own shame. We can move our children towards resilience against shame by sharing with them, when appropriate, our own stories and invite them to tell us theirs. This is something that Angela and I have talked a lot about, actually. There are moments in our own stories that are painful and at various points in our lives have been covered in shame. More recently, after Daniel was born, we both struggled. Angela experienced postpartum anxiety, and it caught us totally off guard. We were not ready for it because it didn't happen with Ava. We just weren't expecting it. We thought we were in the clear, but one day it all fell apart. And we found ourselves in the throes of suicide ideation, panic attacks, insomnia, and so many other complexities. With a toddler and a newborn, that was a lot. Our family was incredible and came alongside us and quite literally saved our lives. There was one day in the emergency room with Ange, and I had reached my breaking point. I was done. I told her that I was going to the bathroom, but I really just went there to cry. And I called my friend Chad, and I'll never forget the call because I didn't really say anything. I just cried. And he knew that there was so much going on, and so a lot didn't need explaining, but I just cried and labored breathing, and all I could hear him say was, "I'm so sorry. I know this is so hard." Needless to say, we needed my family and the community that we found ourselves in. There's a group of friends, 7 to be exact, that have changed my life, and it's the group text that has never ended. And we have done life together, the good, the bad, and the messy, all of it. They were my anchors during this time. I thought about taking my own life, something I hadn't thought about since taking anti-anxiety meds, but I had been off of them for about a year, and so I thought I was good. But this, however, unraveled everything. I needed help, again. These friends saw me at my worst and fought to get me help. They saved me. They made sure I started taking my meds again, seeing my therapist again, and encouraged me to check in with a group every day, often multiple times a day. I was so tired of giving them bad news. I was tired of hearing myself. I thought that they would abandon me. I thought that I was too much. And there's one text message in particular that's really helpful. I'm mindful of time, but let's skip to the end. And he says, I know you feel weak, but you are an inspiration to those of us you keep bringing in. Thanks for inviting us to help you, but also I would add, thanks for inviting us to look up to you and admire you and your commitment to your people. This is where I belong. These were my people. I had found my people. The parts that I was most ashamed of were on full display, highlighted and not hidden. When we share our vulnerabilities with others, we send a powerful message that they are not alone in their weakness. Shame would like nothing more than for us to believe that we should be able to work out our problems, because if we don't, we will be abandoned. This is a lie. In fact, when we are vulnerable with the right people, we will not only not be abandoned, but we will find a place of belonging.
Discover who you're called to be at Biola University, a leading Christ-centered university in Los Angeles, with programs on campus and online. Subscribe for more of our videos and learn more at biola.edu.